Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Yes. Cocked? Locked? Well, here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're with us in class today. And Patrick is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. And the best time to call is when we're on the air. That's from 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. Let's see. If you'd like to listen, we have a delayed listen line that's working. The real-time listen line isn't that reliable yet, and I'll let you know when it is. But a listen line that's delayed by about an hour is 701-719-0914. 701-719-0914. I'm Vin Finelli. And Guineith Isaacs is with us. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Guineith, are you tired?
I'm just woken up.
Yeah. 208.
You can probably hear it in my voice.
208. Yeah, 208 in the morning, a.m. in Australia. It's 9:08 in the morning in Missouri. So I want to thank you, Guineith. You're live in Australia, and let me explain what has happened here. So Rich Shealy called me, and he was having difficulty with the Monday time slot, 2 hours on Mondays. And I said, okay, let me see what I can do. So I contacted Guineith, and Guineith said, sure, I'll swap with Rich. So Guineith would take Mondays, and Rich would take Tuesdays. That was very kind of you and gracious, Guineith. Thank you. And then I got contacted 2 days ago. Dr. Norm Shealy has a schedule change in his practice, his medical practice. And he and Dr. Sergey Sorin need to be working together with patients same time at the clinic in Springfield, Missouri. And Norm Shealy had been with me on Wednesdays since the beginning of broadcasting, over 6 years or so. So Norm Shealy needed to change to a Monday, which Guineith had just changed to. So I contacted Guineith and asked Guineith if she could switch with Norm. So here's the new lineup. Monday, it will be Norm Shealy. Tuesday, Rich Shealy. Wednesday, Guineith Isaacs. Guineith, thank you so much. That was very kind of you to do that, and I really appreciate it. I really do. So there you have it.
That's all right. Yep.
No, really, I appreciate it. And, it upends schedules when you do that kind of thing. Well, in our neck of the woods here in Missouri, we've had Obamacare for going on 9 years, or close to 9 years. And I got to tell you, every year, it's another change, another hurdle, another hassle, and the price of insurance goes up. The choices go down. The restrictions increase. It just gets worse. Now, Barry the Liar, also known as Barack Obama in some circles, said that your health coverage won't cost more than your cell phone. Really? Okay. Well, let me give you some numbers. All of the insurers that were available up until next year, have pulled out of our county. There's only one left. Anthem Blue Cross, except for the hospitals. And if you want to pay for insurance from your hospital, you can get that. But if you want one of the major players, a silver plan, not the best plan, not the worst plan, but a medium range plan for one person. This would be like a 25 to 30-year-old type, young person. $496 a month, $516 a month, or $522 a month. Pick one. Pick one. That's what is left in our county with the intergalactic disgrace called Obamacare. He has destroyed health insurance. He really has.
Yeah.
And every year it has gone up.
That's a very expensive cell phone bill.
I don't know anybody who has a single phone that is between $496 and $522 for one phone. I don't know anybody. I really don't. So that's what Barry Soetoro did to health insurance in our neck of the woods. Let me share something that happened yesterday. I was on my way back from the Springfield area, Springfield, Missouri. It's like every time I get in my car or truck, coming back from or going to or spending time in Springfield, which I really don't like doing. But I was helping one of our instructors who was having a tough time with some wiring. I mean, a really tough time. And so I'm on my way home about 7 o'clock at night or so. It's dark. And 2-lane road, 1 lane coming, 1 lane going. Double yellow line. We're going around a left-hand curve. No passing zone. And the guy, and we drive on the opposite side of the road from you, Guineith. So there was a guy in a vehicle. This is at night. Headlights on, dark, black, pitch black. And a guy on a motorcycle decides to pass a vehicle. So he goes to the left on a left-hand curve. He passes the vehicle just as the vehicle is signaling to make a left-hand turn on a no-passing zone curve going to the left. Everybody survived. But what is so important to operators of vehicles today, where they feel that they've got to save those seconds and do something as stupid as passing on a double yellow line on a motorcycle at night in the dark, illegally passing. I mean, it just makes no sense at all. Now, I really don't like having the cops everywhere, but I wish the cops would start pulling these people over and ticketing them for unsafe, reckless, careless, irresponsible operation of their vehicles. I really wish they would. So that's my thought there. And Guineith, we've got Sharon on the line in Montana. Welcome, Sharon.
Oh, good morning. Hey, Guineith, I feel for you. I had a very short night's sleep. I was thinking about you this morning, and you mentioned you're tired. I thought, man, that's going to be something getting up that early. I have a quick curiosity question. What night is it? It's Sunday night or Monday night there?
It's Tuesday morning.
Okay, yeah.
2 a.m.
Monday night, Tuesday morning. Okay. Yeah. I was trying to figure that out, and my brain didn't want to figure it out, so I just thought I'd ask.
Yep, no,
hey, Sharon, before you ask your question or make your comment, I've got a question for you. I know you know Kyle Harris pretty well. He's your roommate, right? And
I know him pretty well. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And here's my question. Would you ask him for me if he would be available on Friday to do a 1-hour broadcast about home wiring? I have seen some things. I'm helping one of our instructors day after day. I've been, not in a row, but taking apart his wiring on his farmhouse, which had been wired by, I believe, 3 generations of wiring, at least, maybe 4, in this house that was built in the 1960s, early 60s. And it has been a real challenge. And I'd like to describe to him and on the broadcast things that I found that are of great concern to me. Great concern. And we're fixing them one at a time. But I'd love to share this broadcast with Kyle because he is our expert electrician. Would you mention that to him, please? If Friday is convenient for him.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll let him know. That's great. No problem.
Very good. Okay. So, Sharon, please continue.
Yeah. I didn't quite know how to approach this. I was talking to you a couple days ago, and I listened to a program. I listen to a lot of programs on my phone, the radio on the phone now. Like yours, unfortunately, I have to do the delay because I don't have internet in my house. But anyway, I was listening to this program. They were discussing the social engineering on the internet, and also this program they want to put on that would monitor your words and kind of the emotions in your words to see if you might be potentially suicidal, okay? And that sounds all nice, but they'll be watching, well, they're already kind of watching everything, but they'll be monitoring everything, and they were talking about how, this could be such a wonderful thing. They'd send people to your house if you weren't, seeming to do very well and all. And I was thinking, first, that is a huge invasion of your privacy. But secondly, I was trying to think, well, why does that bother me? I mean, I don't have anything to hide, but it's not anybody's business is how I figure, okay? And I realized that when you have something like this, you're giving them potential power and control, and in this case, you definitely are, over your lives, and I don't like to give unknown people any kind of power or control over my life. And so we were kind of discussing how you need to be aware of what you're doing online, because although we would say suicide might be a justifiable cause, which I don't, personally, even though I don't like committing suicide, eventually it might come down to you're not politically correct. You say something that, like over in Europe, I understand they're getting pretty crazy about what you can and can't say, and there's some people, places where they're getting all particular about what gender you might accidentally call somebody because somehow they're so sensitive they couldn't possibly call it the wrong thing. And it's just kind of a beware moment. I don't think we should live in fear, but I thought that was interesting. And he also went on to discuss how they have social engineering to basically cause you to be addicted to things like Twitter and your Facebook. And one of the things they did is have a little red light pop up, and we're kind of psychologically programmed to respond to a little red light. Okay, what is it? Like it's an emergency. And I was kind of wondering what your take was on that, Guineith.
Well, there's a good reason for feeling, a real sense of unease when you hear about government officials coming around to your house just to make sure that you're okay. There's a long history of them abusing that sort of power. And with me, there's a long personal history of them abusing that sort of power. So I would definitely feel unease about hearing that. And with regard to the Pavlovian nature of Facebook and other social media applications, I'd say, yeah, definitely. I would say that they're absolutely Pavlovian.
Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Sharon is live in Montana. I'm Vin Finelli. And ladies in class, I'd like to share something that I experienced yesterday. I was in the kitchen of an instructor, actually two instructors in Missouri. I was helping them with their farmhouse. And we just had a bite to eat. And we were talking about the Internet of Things and the monitoring. And I brought up the topic, and one of the instructors we were talking about Alexa, Alexa, and how one of the instructors was at a person's house, and they said, "Shh, we have to say it quietly because Alexa will hear it and might respond and do something." So in this other house, not our instructor's house, another house, our instructors were visiting, and they had to be careful what they said because of the always listening Alexa product and software might do something based on what was said in their house. Alexa is on 24 hours a day, listening. And we don't know where all that information is going. So can you imagine the discussions that Alexa could respond to? And Sharon and I were talking off the air about things like, well, the daughter is maybe 11 years old and in school. And she's being told, how to be safe. And if you feel threatened, you call 911. That's what you do. So the daughter goes to the public training camp and learns this over and over and over. And then daughter's home and mom and dad are talking about Christmas and Christmas presents. And there's a disagreement because one parent wants to buy this gift and the other parent says we can't afford it. And so the conversation gets a little louder and a little louder, and the daughter feels threatened and calls 911. Then the police arrive. It's a domestic dispute. Both parents get arrested. Now they're both felons. Neither can have a a gun because they're felons. And maybe even Child Protective Services comes in to rescue that 11-year-old from the parents who are having an argument over whether to buy this particular Christmas present or not. Is that far-fetched? I don't think so.
That's disgusting, but it's absolutely typical. Happens all the time. Yep.
Yeah. So, do you want to have these electronic gadgets in your house? Do you want to have a watch? That
something?
Right.
I was talking. I'm actually really, really glad that we don't have electricity 24 hours a day in this house. We don't have internet 24 hours a day. It's absolutely, oh my gosh. Trying to get the kids off the internet and out into the yard doing stuff other than stuff related to the internet is an uphill, constant battle. And, I've had this discussion with my boys that devices like Alexa and Siri are banned from this household. And if they want to see Mum throw a wobbly, they should try bringing one of these devices into the household, because they will see me flip out. That's just the truth of it. And the device probably will not survive. Alexa will probably get a hammer through her head.
Well, here's something that we built with one of our instructors. So the technician from the internet company goes to one of our instructors' houses and hooks up a router. And the router is on 24 hours a day. And the router is in an area that's inaccessible. It's above one of the rooms, okay? In like a crawl space type area or an attic type area. You can't turn it on or off because it's up there. So what we did was we wired a wall switch and extended a circuit into that area, and you can turn the router on and off without going up there. You want to think about that? We'll be right back. So last night I was asleep and dreaming, and during the dream I was trying to figure out what Alexa stood for. And I got the first two letters solved in my mind. Always listening, A-L-E-X-A. Always listening. And I don't know what the rest of it stands for. Maybe always listening extended area or something like that. But it monitors real time what you're doing so it can respond. So how comfortable would you feel going to someone's house knowing that there is a device attached to the network, the internet, that's always listening to everything that you say? For sure, by design. I mean, that is doing it. How would you feel about that? Sharon, your thoughts?
I wouldn't want to hang out in that person's house.
Right. I feel like it's really creepy, but there's this massive social engineering going on that we're sort of unaware of. You and I and Guineith and a few of us older people, because we still have common sense, okay? There's this massive social engineering going on that's making it like, what's a big deal? If you mention, like, even my kids are not, they wouldn't put that in their house, but, they're on their phones a fair amount. They still communicate well. But it's like, well, that's just crazy. Why are you so paranoid about that? It's like they're not getting the bigger picture. And I homeschool all our kids from kindergarten to high school, so I oversaw a lot of their education, and so we did study history, and it seems like there's a disconnect that what happened in the past could happen again, so that power can be abused and used against you. And I read about that, the Alexa thing, and I just thought, that is just so creepy. Why would you bring something like that into your house? And yet they're touting how handy, they'll tell you what's in your fridge, and they'll tell you, what your kid's doing, and they can just turn on any music you want, anywhere you want, and your TV can come on or off, or, and all you have to do is speak the words. So they make it sound like you have power to do all these amazing things by just speaking, but they're not pointing out the fact that they're gaining immense amount of power and control over you and your life because they know every detail of your life, and that can be easily twisted and used against you. And it seems like there's just like this blank wall when you try to tell people something like that. They think, what? Are you crazy? I'm thinking, didn't you study any history? Don't you remember the abuses of power that have been out throughout mankind? And can't you see the massive ability for abuse in this area? And I'm not sure how one even begins to get that across to anyone. And I was kind of curious, Gwyneth, how you try to share that with your sons even, because they're still at home.
Something, I think that they're probably a bit more aware than most kids of their age. And I don't think they ever would bring one of these devices into our home because, we've had so much trouble, and they're a bit more politically educated than most people. They've seen a bit more than most people. And I think that they would be aware of the dangers, of a device like that.
Yeah. But
it's just disgusting because you only have to go back. You don't even have to go back very far. You go back less than a human lifetime. Okay? We just celebrated 70 years. This is the 70th year, apparently, now since Israel was declared a nation. There's still a guy alive in Israel who saw the whole thing from the very first sale of land to the Jews by the Jordanians, and he was at Auschwitz. He was a prisoner there. He's a Jew. He's about 113 years old. And he now lives in Israel. He's the oldest man in Israel. You don't have to go back that far. This is less than a human lifetime. Way less than a human lifetime.
Yeah. Well, but see, the whole, I'm not against technology, okay, don't get me wrong. I mean, it has a wonderful, good part, but there's a danger involved in it, too, and I feel like somehow we need to be aware and try to minimize the negative effect that it can have, and kind of sort of protect yourself from being overly monitored. I don't really know how one plays that out, but I know that it's engineered to basically addict you so that you have to be on it like all the time, and it's important, and kids aren't even getting enough sleep because they have their phones by their bed, and if anything comes through, they have to wake up and answer it, so they're not even getting good deep sleep. I mean, this is a common trait, and they talk about it in various articles and on some places, but most of the articles I read. And I'm just wondering how we can be proactive about something like that to try it. How in the world are you going to explain this? Because when you talk to people, especially my kids are probably more aware too because we talk a lot, but they act like you're the one that's paranoid. You know what I mean? Instead of like, no, why would I want people wanting to know what I'm doing every second of my life? Why would I want someone controlling my life? Why would I feel compelled to instantly answer your text or your email or your Facebook or whatever it is you're on, instead of still the person or my life in front of me. And it's becoming a way of life, and it's kind of creepy,
Let's extrapolate this for just a second. So we have, let's say a person has Alexa in their house and it's being monitored, as we've been discussing. Let's shift that to, instead of Alexa, what we have is a microphone in that house connected to a public address system with speakers on poles outside the house. Okay? So now everything that's being said in the house is picked up by that microphone and is amplified and sent outside to anyone who wants to hear it. Now, would the children... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, do you mind if I jump in real quick?
No, yeah, please do.
Oh, but, it's interesting how it's only 4 years since the Ed Snowden revelations and all this the revelations about government surveillance, and now people are actually paying for something like Alexa in their house that's monitoring them. And I get your meaning with your analogy about like the public address speakers outside the house, but that's kind of contrary to how surveillance works, because it's covert, and it's only there would be a safety if everyone's private life was being, broadcast like that, but instead it's selective and the information isn't like open to anyone to have access to. It's like the people who have a use for it and want to zero in on certain individuals at a time will be doing that. So in that way, it's a bit of a false analogy.
No, I understand, Patrick. I understand that. But the point I was trying to make is, would a young person who is willing to have Alexa in their home, would they feel differently if they knew that the sounds that are made in the home, whatever those sounds are, people talking, dropping dishes, arguments, doors closing, whatever the sounds are, okay, being able to be heard by others who were interested. That was the analogy. So I think that young people would say, are you kidding? I don't want everything that goes on in my bedroom or the bathroom or the kitchen or wherever being heard by anyone who cares to spend the time or has the inclination to listen. It would be an eye-opener, I believe, to these young people if they thought of it kind of like that analogy. That's what I was saying.
I get what you're saying with that.
Yeah.
I don't think they would sign up for that at all.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that people are paying for this Alexa system when they were supposed to be shocked by the Snowden revelations that American citizens were being monitored in the way that is unconstitutional and really, really creepy.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Guineith, your thoughts?
I think people just need to go to YouTube sometime and, switch on the closed caption function on a video and realize how good this AI voice recognition software is, and about how it can actually just about type any words that you say in real time and put it onto a computer file for anyone to send, a web spider through later. And not all people who run web spiders are as good people as Cliff High. Most of them are totally nefarious. They absolutely are, and they want to harm you. They're constantly on a fishing expedition. These people are evil. They're evil, 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 and they are just looking for a way to destroy you and to destroy your whole family, and to deprive you of your land, to deprive you of your children, to have them off and sold into sex slavery. The Child Protective Services get $100,000 for every child that they kidnap, and the agent themselves probably gets about $10,000 of that. That has come out in whistleblower reports. And, they're going to use anything that they can, and these devices are going to be a key part of that. And they're going to, just build a case if they decide in their minds that you have a target painted on your back.
Let's extrapolate this for a second. Let's say a person lives in suburbia, and they have a lawn, and they hire a local neighbor, young person, to use a push mower and cut the lawn. So he goes about 4 minutes, stops, takes his phone out of his pocket, texts someone, goes another 4 minutes, stops, takes his phone out, texts someone, goes another 4 minutes. Who would put up with that? Well, sign number 1 of the 30 signs of social media addiction are checking your mobile phone every few minutes for any notification on Facebook, Twitter, and such. Yeah, seriously. That's an addiction. We'll be right back. With Sharon, Guineith, and Patrick. Guineith Isaacs is with us. Sharon in Montana. Patrick is joining us. Patrick's our engineer on the broadcast. And I was mentioning to Patrick off the air that One of the things that bothered me about the meetups that we used to have at the restaurant for years is people would walk in late, looking down at their cell phone, texting while they're walking in late. Okay? Everybody looks, sees the new person walking in the front door, looking for a seat, looking down at her phone while she's texting. Okay? Other times, I prepare this presentation, I'm teaching, and people are looking down at their phones, texting. And it bothered me. I thought it was rude. I thought it was offensive. I thought, why am I spending my time doing this? Okay. Then let's move over to our farmhouse. I put a sign up on our back door that said, and side door, and all the doors, no cell phones. And what would happen, but prior to that, what would happen is people would come to visit us at the farm, and they might bring some young people with them, and we'd be around the kitchen table having something to drink or eat. And everybody would have their cell phone on the table, except the Finellis. And then they would take the cell phone off the table, put it on their lap, text for a minute or two, put the cell phone back on the table. What I'm saying is they would totally ignore the conversation, the reason that they were there in the first place, in favor of whatever they're doing on their social network, the cell phone. And I found it just annoying. I found it rude, offensive, annoying, impolite. I mean, what it's like, to me, if you take the cell phone out of the equation, it would be like having everybody sit around in one conversation and having one person at a time turn to the next person and start another conversation. That's also rude. You know what I'm saying? That's what this is like. And yeah. I think that these devices have enabled this rudeness. Who'd like to chime in?
It's like necessary to call people on it because it's a new development that we all have these like devices that we keep in our pocket that can keep us connected to the world. Like there's going to be some. Yeah, I just think it's necessary to point out when it is rude and when you are like bothered by it. It's also, I think, necessary to ask to be excused when you do need to go send a message or something, or like acknowledge that you're being rude in doing that. Because this is a thing that you've observed that you find to be rude, but I'm sure it's come up before that. There was a time where you did need to pay attention to your cell phone and you were in the middle of a conversation, but there were other things going on. That's just the way it is.
All right, sometimes I'll get a telephone call while I'm on a telephone call. And you can hear the tone or the indication that you have call waiting. Okay? Almost all the time I ignore it. However, sometimes I will say to the person that I have been talking to, I'm sorry, I have to take this call.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's...
Most of the time, I ignore it, look at the caller ID, and say, okay, mentally, I'll call this person back. But I very seldom jump off the phone and say, I have to take this call.
Yeah.
Now, other times, people have called me, and they've stopped because I've complained about this on the air, but people would call me and say, so what are you doing? And my response is, none of your business. I mean, really? Vinny, what are you doing? I'm on a ladder. I mean, I'm on the roof, in which,
well, yeah, what do you mean, at the same time, they're just...
Where did that come?
There are different ways that people inquire. There's the bumper music.
But it's not polite. Patrick, it should be like this. It should be, hey, Vin, this is Patrick. I had a quick question for you. It'll probably take about a minute. Is this a good time or not? Would it be better if we talked later?
That's probably
What's wrong with that?
Do it. Nothing.
That's how I do it all the time.
I do it.
All the time. Yep. There you go. Sharon, would you like to continue with us?
Oh, I might, just so I can hear you.
Guineith will be with us. Patrick is with us. I'm Vin Finelli. And a little bit of ranting about being impolite. I think we need to steer our society back to being polite. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us in Australia. Sharon in Montana is with us. Patrick in Minnesota, our engineer, is with us. I'm Vin Finelli. I'm in Missouri. And Guineith, you had a couple topics that you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah. we haven't even begun to talk about the topics of the day.
Yeah. Which
were Bitcoin volatility and market volatility in general and how to deal with it. We have seen this week with Bitcoin such huge price swings in the orders of like $2,000 and $3,000 a day, and even more, backwards and forwards. And if people don't know how to deal with this sort of thing, they're likely to get financially slaughtered in such a market. And that's just, you've got to be aware of this sort of market volatility, and the key to handling this sort of price volatility is to realize that you're buying something long term. The price of this particular asset is probably going to increase. So if you've bought in, I saw Bitcoin earlier on this week for a brief time go all the way to over $19,000. Now, if I had bought Bitcoin then, and a few days later it had gone to 13,500 or whatever it was at, then I would have gone, oh dear, I'm going to hold this and it'll be okay. I wouldn't be in a panic to sell. Okay? That's what you do in a rising market where you've bought in at the top. You don't panic. You just hold. If you have paid for an asset and you've bought at the top and you are in a genuine bear market, then, you can either try and offload it before it's too late or just hold it and cut your losses. And, but in a rising market, that's not the best strategy to do. You've just got to sort of deal with that, vertigo feeling in the gut. Just hold and realize that that you are going to make the gains back before very long. And otherwise, if you buy on every high and sell on every low, you're going to get financially slaughtered in a market like this. And just to realize that there are going to be very, very, very wild swings of price before this whole thing settles.
Let's talk about how wild we're talking about. I remember being on the air with Rich Shealy, and during the break, I was looking at some of the numbers, some of the Bitcoin prices, and I would write it down, and then I'd look again a couple seconds later, and I'd scratch out the first number, scratch out the second number. It kept going up and up until it hit 19,120. And I was talking to Rich Shealy the evening before, and I believe it was around in the 14,000 neighborhood. I mean, it's a huge, huge swing from 14 to 19,000. And I'm looking at Litecoin, Litecoin. Now, on December 8th, it was around $98. $98. And, it's a lot more palatable to spend $98 for a concept than it is to spend $14,000 for a concept, like Bitcoin. Well, I couldn't believe it. Now, that was December 8th. We're talking about 3 days later, okay? $185. It went from $98. Yeah.
Almost double.
In 3 days. In 3 days. And right this second, it's $182.09. These are massive, massive gains. And I think that what's happening is people are saying, shoot, I could have bought it at 95 or 98, could have bought it at 100, 110, 120, 130, all the way up to 150. Like, wow, at 150, that's crazy. That was yesterday. Now it's 185.
That's about the time to say, I'm not going to buy into it right now. I'm going to wait for it to swing down again.
Yeah.
Yeah. when
that's what I said.
See rising prices, it's a psychological thing. And I've been trading on various markets, since my boys were, quite little. So not quite, well, yeah, I started, doing real estate, buying real estate and then selling real estate. When my first property that my husband and I bought, my oldest son wasn't even born. And, you've got to realize that it's a psychological trigger to see a rising price and to want to buy before it goes any higher. And it actually takes a great deal of self-discipline and control to spot that this is an upswing in the market. This is not the time to buy. You should wait until it swings low, back to near its low. And to realize that the low is not going to go as low as the previous low was, that the new low is going to be a bit higher than the old low was, because that's the stepwise value of a rising market. Okay? If you can learn to manage that to that degree, you can actually make quite a good income being a day trader. I can't do that. I'm just probably too Sagittarian to do that. So I find that if I buy in a rising market to watch long term it growing, and then to realize the top and to do my own market analysis. And at one time I did learn how to read charts. I went out and actually bought a chart reading course, and I studied it, and I actually learned that and how to read the candles and all of that. But to spot a rising market and to be able to spot the genuine top, and to know that it's coming and to sell before other people realize that it's getting pretty close to the genuine top of the market, and to be able to offload whatever it is, whether it's Bitcoin or whether it's real estate or whether it's stocks and shares or whatever, currency, whatever you happen to be trading, before the top of the market. And
did you ever
probably the best way?
Did you learn the term random walk? Random, W-A-L-K, 2 words when you were studying this?
No, I learnt the 3 bears method, meaning that there's usually 3 peaks up and there's usually 3 peaks down.
Okay. Well,
I didn't learn.
I learned
the random walk.
I learned a couple. Okay, I'll tell you that in a second. I learned a couple things in finance and economics courses, and one thing I remember from the 70s when I started studying this was that you can be a bull or you can be a bear, just don't be a pig. And that was one of the things that I learned. Another thing I learned was random walk. Now, you can look at the charts and you can say, well, this is uptrend, uptrend, uptrend. I think it's going to keep going up. You can draw lines through these charts and you can figure out, the direction. That's kind of simple. And I learned that. But I also learned something called random walk. Everything's doing fine until something that was unexpected happens. Like the president gets shot. And I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying. So, when JFK was shot, there was a dramatic reaction. President of another country gets shot. Right.
But there's usually precursors that will warn you of such events that they're coming down the pipe. And if you learn to listen to those precursors, you can be ahead of the market.
And what I'm saying is that there are things that happen that not everybody realizes is a possibility. It happens, and the market takes a dramatic turn in some direction. And these are generally not expected events. Okay, an asteroid has an impact. massive brownout, massive blackout, I should say, some terrorist event. It could be anything like that. Some dramatic event happens, not expected, not anticipated by most people, and it affects the markets. That's called random walk. So I just wanted to share that with the class. So yes, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and I'm going to go to Ethereum right now, EUTHEREUM. Chart looks a little bit different. On December 8th, we were looking at about $430. And December 9th, it hit 500 and change. Way higher than 502. About $520, roughly. So these are the kinds of peaks we're looking at. Dramatic. Absolutely dramatic. And if you want to see these charts, class, you go to Coinbase.com. COINBASE.com. Now, Ethereum moved 3.66% plus since yesterday. That's a pretty hefty amount. You can't get that at any bank I know. You can't even get that for a year's worth of savings at a bank. Litecoin up 25.61% since yesterday. 25.61% in one day. Bitcoin plus 7.1% in one day. So if you had Bitcoin, it went up $1,105 in one day, literally. So we're talking about cryptocurrencies. Guineith, did you have some other comments that you'd like to make about cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, I would say that, that they are sucking in. They're probably the reason why we do not presently have huge amounts of hyperinflation in every fiat currency on the earth right now. Okay? They are Federal Reserve notes and their various other, cousin currencies and sister and brother currencies out there in the world. And so we really should be grateful that they're here. They're here to stay. And if you, don't get involved in Bitcoin, you're going to find that, you will end up getting left behind. This is an opportunity of a lifetime to set yourself up forever for you and your whole family. Now, that said, you do have to be cautious about how you go about it. You do need to do your proper due diligence and research. And, I was musing on that the other day when I was having dishcloth therapy. That's where I go to the sink and actually make the dishes pile smaller that's on the sink. Somewhat similar to shovel therapy. But anyway, about how my whole family, going back a few hundred years, were central bankers, and about how it's all come full circle, about how our branch of the family tree was lopped off, and we were sent, or our ancestor was sent, or decided to go to the Antipodes, okay, to Australia, and then my father decided to go to New Zealand to seek a better life. They thought that they were getting rid of us. Just like I'm sure that the patriarchs of the Schiff family, by giving Erwin Schiff such a bad time, thought that they were getting rid of that branch of the Schiff family, and they didn't take account that Erwin Schiff actually managed to bred, and he produced Peter Schiff, and Peter Schiff is just never, ever going to let go or back down, and neither am I. And there's loads of us. You don't have to be descended from a banker family to see these sorts of opportunities. But I think it must be some sort of epigenetics or something kicking in, because I'm sort of looking at this and I'm shaking my head and going, man, oh man, oh man. I wonder if my cousins over in the old country are realizing the opportunities that I'm seeing right now. The people who are the current heirs of the Bonham Carter estate. I know that they're still involved. I know that Raymond Bonham Carter, who is the father of Helena Bonham Carter, is a City of London banker. But, the messages that have been coming from them have been very, very mixed. And there's a part of me that sort of sits back and says, I think that, they might be, and they might be just disguising the fact that they're pretending to be opposed to Bitcoin, when in reality they're looking to set this up because they know that their fiat experiment has been a disaster, and they're themselves looking to get involved in the next stage. But that's not going to stop me either, because there's nothing stopping me from investing in Bitcoin mines and turning a bit of that machinery that has always been denied to us, the ordinary people, and claiming a bit of that machinery of currency creation for ourselves. It's always been denied to us, the ordinary people. Many years ago, I looked into what it would take to gain a banking license here in Australia, and you would have to put something like between $2 and $3 million on the table in cash immediately, and take that to the government regulators before they would even consider setting you up as even the smallest level of banker.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. We're talking about the cryptocurrencies, and let me just read a headline. This is Newsweek, December 11th, 2017. Bitcoin mining on track to consume all of the world's energy by 2020. Let me read that again. Bitcoin mining on track to consume all of the world's energy by 2020. And let's see. I'm looking for... Okay. The Bitcoin network's energy consumption has increased by 25% in the last month alone, according to Dig Economist, Digiconomist. If such growth were to continue, this would see the network consume as much energy as the United States by 2019 and as much energy as the entire world by the end of 2020. That's a projection. It's an enormous amount of energy. And a lot of that energy goes up into heat. This is, if you're thinking that the footprint of the cryptocurrencies is clean, not true. Not true. There's a massive, massive polluting footprint from the creation of cryptocurrencies when they use electricity, which many believe is clean, but it's not necessarily clean. It's pretty clean if it's hydro. But there's pollution in the construction of the hydro infrastructure. There's pollution in solar panels, the making of solar panels. And one of the things that I noticed over the weekend when I was helping one of our instructors with his farm and wiring is that there's electricity in the ground. We might not be thinking about this, but so if you take a rod, like an 8-foot rod, and you drive it in the ground, a metal rod, and then let's say 100 feet away from that, you drive in another rod, you can literally measure the electricity in the ground. As a matter of fact, if you dig a trench and you let that trench, let's say it's a 200-foot long trench or 100-foot long trench, and water tends to gravitate toward that trench, and it's damp, you can put dissimilar rods of metals in that trench separated by a few inches apiece. So you have two rods, dissimilar metals. And that would make a cell, an electric cell. Then a few feet from that, you put in two other rods separated by a couple inches each. And you tie them plus to minus, plus to minus. You actually can make a ground or an earth battery because of the action of the dissimilar metals. There is electricity in the ground, in the air, and I'm wondering if we are causing this. And that's a question for Rick Miller on Thursday. But there's pollution that way as well. Pollution of electromagnetic radiation in the air through the power delivery, through the grid. There's all kinds of pollutions that we're not thinking about. So Bitcoin and the other cryptos are not necessarily as clean as we might think. Guineith, do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay. Actually, the whole thing about earth electricity has been known for a really, 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 really long time. You get researchers who lived over 100 years ago. I'm thinking specifically of Nikola Tesla, Victor Schauberger, and Wilhelm Reich, who all of them, noticed the phenomenon of earth electricity in one form or another. And they actually did a great deal of research into it, and they found that all of life was actually full of electricity, especially Schauberger and Reich. That's R-E-I-C-H, if anyone wants to research his work. He had a great deal to do with researching something he called orgone energy, which he proposed was the life force that was in everything. And, of course, that's a concept that goes back centuries. But he first had to think about that when he saw the way that a trout can run up a river and stop it absolutely instantly in the middle of an absolutely raging torrent. Now, I tried to explain this to my sons. We live in, like I said, a semi-arid area. I think that they might have started to get it when we went and camped for a while in a state forest where they had one of these waterfalls, where they had one of these raging rivers with the intense pressure of water. And there were the trout absolutely sitting stationary against a massive pressure of water. And then they appeared able to move about at will within the water, and he found out that it was electromagnetic difference, that it was actually operating at what we would think of as being a miniature bullet train, okay? Exactly the same principle of a difference of electric charge between the trout and the water. It was operating in exactly the same way that you can move a magnet around by pushing it with the positive pole if you push it against the negative pole of another magnet, even through the bottom of a table, if the magnet's strong enough. And, this has been known for a long time, that the Earth has electricity in it, even before there was a massive power grid. And probably there is more electricity in the air and in the water and in the earth now than there was before. But it depends. And there's also two kinds. There's called orgone energy and detrimental orgone, or door energy, which is the dirty electromagnetism. And that is the bigger danger. And he also built a device, Wilhelm Reich built a device called an orgone accumulator that would take the orgone energy and direct it for a specific purpose. Okay? And if you go onto YouTube or go onto the your favourite search engine and type in orgone accumulator, then you can see these devices. People are building them all over the world. And we've got a miniaturized version here, and it works effectively to regulate our weather systems, for example, to a radius of about 20 kilometres or about 15 miles, and that's a miniature one. Okay? It's nowhere near full size. A full-size one could probably help to regulate the weather and do away with the interference from cell phone towers and such like for a distance of between 200 and 300 kilometres. But it's very important that if you're going to make one of these devices, that you make a lump of orgonite to go on the bottom of it. That's orgonite. And that you fuse the device into the lump of orgonite. And if you, like I said, the easiest way to explain this, go to YouTube, look up orgone accumulators, orgonite, and it will show you. That is a way, I suppose, that you probably could, use these orgone accumulators as a source of electricity. Because what an orgone, a lump of orgonite is, it basically operates in exactly the same way as an accumulator cell. And you know what an accumulator cell is, don't you, Vincent?
Please share with our class what you're talking about.
Okay. An accumulator cell is you have a highly conductive substance and you layer it with an insulator. So electrical conductor, electrical insulator, electrical conductor, electrical insulator, conductor, insulator, and you have it in some sort of a box, and you have a negative terminal on one end of the conductors and a positive terminal on the other end of the conductor at the other end of the box. And you have the very simplest type of battery, whose history, and the very first orgone accumulators were wire wool, sheep's wool, wire wool, sheep's wool, wire wool, sheep's wool, in layers, in a box. And with an electrical wire, a bare electrical wire, laced into the wire wool at one end and another electrical wire laced into the wire wool at the other end. And there you have a very, very simple battery. And they work.
When I was a very, very young teenager, I took a U.S. penny made out of copper and a U.S. dime made out of mostly silver, and I took a piece of a paper towel and I sandwiched the dime and the penny with the paper towel, and I used a little bit of saline solution, a little bit of salt water, to moisten the paper towel. And you could... Yeah,
they work better when they're moistened. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, you could generate electricity with that. Now, if you used the penny, the paper towel, dime, penny, paper towel, dime, penny, paper towel, dime, and you made a stack of these, and you kept them moist with a saline solution, you could increase the voltage higher and higher and higher. Now, we're not talking about a lot of voltage, but you could certainly measure it with a meter, just as you could if you took a piece of wire, 100 feet long, 75 feet long, strung it between two insulators on trees, and drove a rod into the ground, and you could measure the current between the ground rod and the antenna. We're back. And just got off the phone with Kyle in Montana, Sharon's husband, and he'll be on with us on Wednesday. We're going to be talking about wiring. And I explained to him some of the things that have been going on. And there are some very serious, dangerous situations that I have uncovered that some people have done by wiring. We're going to be talking about pools and how you can be electrocuted. We're going to be talking about risks and how you can check them. That's Wednesday. That will be hour number 2, Kyle Harris. And Guineith, we're talking about the cryptocurrencies. We're talking about even the power that the electricity that cryptocurrencies are consuming. So it's not free, and we're talking about electricity in the ground and in the air. Yeah, and I measured that when I was pretty young in the 1960s. I mean, one of the things that I was fortunate enough to save up for, and by cutting lawns, was a analog volt-ohm-meter, and I could measure very small currents, ohms, and I learned how to use that, and I still have that very same meter today. So there is a lot to think about when it comes to these cryptocurrencies, because they are not, although it appears that they're environmentally clean and they're friendly and so forth, there's a darker side to it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but the other thing that people have to realize is that the very fact that there is a cost associated with them, it means that they're not a fiat currency, that just in the same way that if you have a gold mine, that there are costs associated with running that gold mine. You can't just go into a gold mine and decide that you're going to dig here and that there is automatically going to be, $50 million worth of gold just over here, just because you decide to dig there.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't determine whether any block in particular in the blockchain is going to have any cryptos in it at all. And the vast majority of blocks in the blockchain have no cryptos in them. Okay? So that the very fact that there are costs associated with Bitcoin mining is the thing that makes them not a fiat currency. It takes vast amounts of computing power. It takes electricity. It takes clever minds to think of these things, you know. But what is going to happen at some stage, the over unity devices, the free energy devices, are going to have to come online. They're going to have that technology already existed for maybe 100 years, and it's been absolutely held back by the oil cartels. The oil cartels are now losing their grip because the fiat currency is going down the toilet, and the fiat currency ultimately is what backs the oil. So one way or another, all currency is backed or backs something that is destructive. But for this modern world to exist, we need some type of currency, and preferably some type of currency that can be transmitted across a network in order for our systems to work, to be able to pay for something to be shipped from the other end of the continent or from the other end of the world, and to be put onto an 18-wheeler, to be put onto an ocean liner or an ocean freighter or whatever, and to be shipped from some distant location so that we can get it and so that the funds get there in a timely manner. Otherwise, we're going to have to go back to camel loads of goods and, camel loads of, precious metals going back the other way, like they did in ancient times. You've got to recognise that everything has its cost. And that includes,
very well put.
You can't live a perfect life on this planet.
Guineith Isaacs, thank you so much. Class.